The war room smelled like gunpowder residue and cold coffee. 47 officers sat around the tactical table, their faces illuminated by projected maps of enemy territory, and I was about to ruin everything by going into heat in front of the three most terrifying men I'd ever met. My name is Caspian Vale. I'm 26 years old, and I've been a military intelligence officer for 3 years. I'm also what the medical corps calls a suppressed omega, meaning I've been on heavy-duty suppressants since I presented at 18, maintaining the fiction that I'm a beta so I can serve in active intelligence operations. The suppressant I'd taken that morning should have lasted 18 hours. It had been 7. Across the table, General Thaddeus Crowe was explaining the next phase of our offensive against the Dominion forces. His voice was like gravel and authority combined, rough, commanding, impossible to ignore. He was the supreme commander of Allied forces, famous for his tactical brilliance and his complete lack of tolerance for failure. His brothers flanked him. General Lucian Crowe on his right, head of strategic operations, with eyes that saw through every deception. General Dorian Crowe on his left, commander of special forces, whose reputation for ruthless efficiency preceded him. The Crowe triplets, 3 alpha generals who'd turned the tide of this war. 3 men who didn't know I existed beyond my intelligence reports. I'd been assigned to the War Council 2 months ago as a tactical analyst. My job was to interpret enemy communications, predict troop movements, identify patterns in the chaos. I was good at it. Excellent, actually. Numbers and strategy made sense to me in ways people never had. It was why I'd been asked to present today's intelligence briefing. It was also why I was currently pressing my thighs together under the table and trying not to whimper. The heat came on like an ambush I should have seen coming. One moment I was fine, tracking the discussion, making notes on enemy supply lines. The next, my skin felt too tight, too hot, and there was a desperate ache beginning low in my belly that I recognized with absolute horror. Not here, not now, not during a classified war council with 47 witnesses and 3 alpha generals who could smell my career ending in real time. I reached for my water bottle with a trembling hand. General Lucian's eyes flicked toward me for half a second, then returned to his brother's presentation. Had he noticed? Could he smell it beginning? I'd put on triple-layer scent blockers that morning, military-grade patches designed to mask omega signatures during combat operations. They were supposed to be foolproof. The enemy has moved their artillery to the northern ridge, General Thaddeus was saying, his finger tracing a line on the tactical map. This leaves their southern flank vulnerable. If we can, I needed to leave, immediately. I began calculating exit strategies. The door was sealed, standard protocol for classified briefings. The ventilation system was designed to prevent scent leakage. I was trapped in a locked room with 47 military personnel while my suppressants failed catastrophically. The ache intensified, sending a wave of heat through my core that made my breath catch. Colonel Vance, 3 seats down, glanced at me with a frown. I forced my expression into neutrality and looked down at my tablet, but the tactical data swam in my vision. This was impossible. The suppressants were military grade. I'd taken them at 0600 hours. I'd followed every protocol. I'd been so careful. And now my carefully constructed cover was about to collapse in the most humiliating way possible. General Thaddeus advanced the tactical display. The next phase requires intelligence confirmation. He looked directly at me. Lieutenant Vale, your analysis of enemy communication patterns. Every eye in the room turned toward me. I stood up, and that was my first mistake. The movement shifted something inside me, and suddenly the ache became a desperate need that made my knees weak. I gripped the edge of the table. My voice came out wrong, breathy, unstable. I cleared my throat. The intercepted communications show a pattern of, I made it through 2 more sentences before I had to pause. The room felt unbearably hot. I could feel sweat gathering at my temples. Could feel my scent blockers starting to fail under the onslaught of pheromones my body was producing. In another minute, everyone would know. Everyone would smell exactly what I was. General Dorian was watching me with sharp eyes. His expression shifted from professional attention to something else. Recognition, alarm. The supply line vulnerability suggests I stopped. Gripped the table harder. Excuse me. I didn't finish. Just walked toward the sealed door as quickly as I could without running, ignoring the confused murmurs behind me. My hand was on the biometric lock when General Thaddeus spoke. Everyone out. The murmurs stopped. Silence fell like a blade. "Sir," Colonel Vance said, confused. "The briefing. The briefing is postponed. Everyone leaves. Now." His voice had changed. Still had that gravel authority quality, but underneath was something else. Something that made every instinct in my omega hindbrain sit up and pay attention. Command. Protection. Mine. "General, we haven't finished the tactical assessment. I'll distribute updated orders within the hour. Clear this room immediately. That's an order." I heard the scrape of chairs, the gathering of tablets and documents, the confused exodus of 46 officers who had no idea what was happening. I kept my hand on the door lock, my back to the room, trying desperately to control my breathing. The last officer left. The door sealed behind them with a hydraulic hiss. I heard the secondary lock engage, the one that required command-level clearance to override. "Not you," General Lucian said softly, and his voice was right behind me, close enough that I could feel the warmth of his presence. "Stay exactly where you are, Lieutenant." I turned around slowly, pressing my back against the sealed door. All three of them were standing there, no longer seated at the tactical table, no longer maintaining professional distance, standing in a loose semicircle, watching me with expressions I couldn't quite read. General Thaddeus spoke first. "When did you present as Omega?" The words stuck in my throat. 8 years ago. "Sir, you've been suppressing it." General Dorian's voice was quieter than his brother's, but no less intense. "Yes, sir. Military regulation allows." "We're aware of the regulations," General Lucian interrupted. "What brand of suppressants?" "Tactical grade. Triple dose. Taken at 0600 hours." I could hear the edge of hysteria in my voice. "I don't know what happened. I've never missed a dose. I track everything. I follow every protocol." "Lieutenant Vale." General Thaddeus's voice cut through my panic. "Listen very carefully. Your suppressants didn't fail randomly. Someone in this facility deliberately compromised them." The words took a moment to register. When they did, I stared at him in shock. That's not possible. Who would—" "We don't know yet," General Dorian said. "But we will find out." His expression was deadly, and when we do, they'll wish they'd never been born. "I need to leave," I said desperately. "I need to get to medical. They can give me emergency suppressants. They can." "You can't leave this room," General Lucian said flatly. "Not in your current condition." "Why not?" "Because there are over 200 personnel in this facility," General Thaddeus said. "Statistically, at least 20 of them are alphas with questionable impulse control. The moment you step outside this room, you become a target." The clinical assessments somehow made it more terrifying. I felt tears prick at my eyes. Then what am I supposed to do? For the first time, General Dorian's expression softened slightly. "You're supposed to trust us." The heat pulsed again, stronger this time, and I couldn't suppress the whimper that escaped. All three of them went rigid, their eyes darkened, pupils dilating. I slid down the door into a sitting position, pulling my knees to my chest, trying to make myself as small as possible. General Thaddeus pulled out his comm unit and made a call, his back to me. "Colonel Vance, Code Black, SEAL Level 7, and evacuate all non-essential personnel. No one enters or exits without my direct authorization. No exceptions." He ended the call and turned back to me. "How long do heats typically last for you?" I don't know. This is only my third one. The first two were I managed them with medical assistance, 36 hours each." He nodded, processing. "And you managed them alone?" I understood what he was asking and felt my face burn. "Yes." "That must have been difficult," General Lucian said, and the unexpected gentleness in his voice made the tears finally spill over. "I'm going to lose my commission, aren't I?" I whispered. "No," General Dorian said firmly. "You're not." "How can you say that? I just went into heat during a classified war council. Everyone will. Everyone will be told you had an adverse reaction to combat stims and we evacuated as a precaution," General Thaddeus said. "Colonel Vance is already disseminating that cover story." "Why?" I looked at all three of them. "Why are you helping me?" General Thaddeus crouched down so we were at eye level, maintaining careful distance. "Because we can smell your fear underneath the heat, and it makes us want to tear apart this entire facility to keep you safe." Which is not a standard response. And we're going to need to examine why that is. But right now, just accept that we're helping. I stared at him. The supreme commander of Allied forces, the man who'd won decisive battles through cold calculation, was telling me he wanted to protect me. Are you... I hesitated. Are you affected by me? General Lucian's laugh was short and bitter. Yes, Lieutenant, we're very affected. You smell like winter storms, and something we don't have words for. And our alphas are currently demanding we do things that would violate about 17 military regulations. But we've spent our entire lives learning control, General Dorian added. So you're safe. You need to believe that. I did believe it, which was strange, because I barely knew these men. But something in their absolute certainty made me feel safer than I had since the heat started. What happens now? I asked. Now we wait for the level to clear, General Thaddeus said. Then we move you somewhere more secure. Somewhere you can ride this out safely. Where? Our command quarters, General Lucian said. It's the most secure location in the facility, climate-controlled, private, and we can protect you there. The heat pulsed again, harder, and I couldn't stop the small sound that escaped. All three of them tensed, their control visibly fracturing. How do you do that? I whispered. Control yourselves. You said you're affected, but you seem fine. We're not fine, General Dorian said quietly. We're holding on by our fingernails, but we've had extensive training in managing alpha responses. Right now, that training is the only thing keeping us from doing something we'd all regret. His comm unit buzzed. He glanced at it. Levels clear. Can you walk, Lieutenant? General Thaddeus asked. I wasn't sure, but I nodded. He helped me up, and the brief contact of his hand on my arm sent electricity through my entire body. We both froze. Sorry, I gasped. Don't apologize. General Lucian positioned himself on my other side. Just stay between us. We moved through empty corridors, past abandoned command stations, through security checkpoints that required triple alpha authorization. True to their word, there wasn't a single person on the entire level. Their quarters were at the end of the command wing, a suite designed for the Supreme Command staff. Living area, bedroom, tactical office, everything needed for extended operations. The bedroom was surprisingly comfortable, military efficient, but not Spartan. A large bed, blackout curtains, temperature controls. Bathroom through there, General Dorian pointed. We have medical supplies, clean uniforms, everything you need. We'll be right outside, General Thaddeus added, already backing toward the door. You have privacy, space. Call if you need anything. Wait. I caught his sleeve. You're leaving? You need space to manage this, General Lucian said. We can't. We shouldn't be here while you. But what if someone tries to get in? What if... The panic was rising again. No one will get past us, General Dorian said firmly. We promise. I should have let them go. It was the professional thing, the sensible thing. But the heat was cresting, and the thought of being alone made terror claw at my throat. Please don't leave, I whispered. I know it's not fair to ask, but I'm scared, and you're the only thing that feels safe right now. General Thaddeus's expression cycled through several emotions in quick succession. Lieutenant Vale, if we stay, we need to establish very clear boundaries. We won't touch you unless you explicitly request it. We won't do anything except keep you company and ensure your safety. Understood? I nodded. Say it, General Lucian ordered gently. I understand. You'll stay, but only as support. Nothing else, unless I ask. And if you change your mind, General Dorian added, if you want us to leave, you say so. No questions. No consequences. Okay. General Thaddeus ran a hand through his dark hair, disrupting the military precision. All right. Let me make some calls. Set things in motion to find who sabotaged your suppressants. Then we're at your service. The phrasing made something warm bloom in my chest despite the heat. They set up a workspace on the far side of the room, all three of them working in coordinated silence, making calls, reviewing security footage on tablets, hunting whoever had done this to me. I changed into a clean uniform shirt, too large, hanging to my thighs, and buried myself in blankets that smelled like them, cedar and gunpowder, and something sharp like ozone. General Lucian made calls. Pull security footage from the medical supply room. Check access logs for the past 72 hours. I want every person who touched the suppressant inventory identified and questioned. No, not tomorrow. Now. Between calls, they talked to me. Not about the war or tactics, just steady streams of words that kept me anchored. General Dorian told me about growing up in the mountains, about learning to track at age 6, about the first time he'd led a squad into combat and been terrified despite his training. Why did you join the military? I asked, my voice muffled by pillows. General Thaddeus answered, because we were good at it, and because it gave us purpose, control over chaos. Control over what? Everything we could manage, General Lucian said. When you grow up in a war zone, you learn that control is survival. You learn to be cold, calculating, efficient. You learn to suppress everything that makes you vulnerable. That sounds lonely. It is, General Dorian admitted. But it kept us alive, kept us effective. We've never let anyone see us lose control. Until today, I whispered. Until today, General Thaddeus agreed quietly. Another wave of heat stole my words. I curled tighter, whimpering. Talk to me, General Lucian said sharply. What do you need? I don't know. It hurts. There are things that help, General Dorian said carefully. Self-care measures. Have you been managing it? I knew what he meant, felt my face burn. I can't, not with you here. We're not looking, General Thaddeus said. We're just voices in the corner. You need to take care of yourself, Lieutenant. Would it help if we talked? General Lucian asked. Gave you something else to focus on? Maybe. So they talked. They told me about their first command, about the battle that made their reputation, about the weight of sending soldiers into combat and knowing some wouldn't come back. General Thaddeus's voice was steady, methodical, and gradually I let myself relax into the heat instead of fighting it. Let myself take care of my body's needs while their words kept the loneliness at bay. It should have been mortifying, but it felt like trust. Hours passed. The heat ebbed and flowed. They kept working, kept talking when I needed it, kept being steady presences. At some point, exhaustion dragged me under. I woke to find the room darker, and General Dorian standing by the window, his comm unit pressed to his ear. I don't care what his rank is. If he had access to the medical supplies this week, I want him in an interrogation room. Yes, I understand it's irregular. Do it anyway. He noticed I was awake. How are you feeling? Better. Still in heat, but not as desperate. He crossed closer, crouched beside the bed. We found who did it. Captain Brennick. He'd been harassing you, hadn't he? I blinked in surprise. How did you... We pay attention, Lieutenant, General Lucian said from across the room. We've seen every interaction you've had in this facility for the past 2 months. We noticed him cornering you after briefings. Noticed you deflecting. I didn't think anyone saw that. We see everything that concerns our intelligence officer, General Thaddeus said, entering from the tactical office, especially when someone is making him uncomfortable. Tell us about Captain Brennick, General Dorian prompted gently. I took a breath, remembering. He started about 6 weeks ago. Would find excuses to talk to me alone. Comment on how I smelled despite the scent blockers. Asked invasive questions about my designation. What kind of questions? General Lucian's voice had gone cold. Whether I was suppressing anything, whether I'd ever considered going off suppressants, whether I'd thought about bonding. I tried to deflect, tried to maintain professionalism, but he kept pushing. And we failed to stop it, General Thaddeus said, his jaw tight. Failed to protect you from harassment in our own facility. You didn't know. We should have, General Dorian interrupted. We're your commanding officers. Creating a safe environment is our responsibility. How did you find out it was him? I asked. General Lucian pulled out a tablet, showed me security footage. This is from 3 days ago. The medical supply room where suppressants are stored. The footage showed Captain Brennick entering the room, looking around to ensure he was alone, then opening the suppressant storage and doing something I couldn't quite see from the camera angle. We had the affected suppressants analyzed, General Thaddeus explained. They'd been compromised with a degradation agent, designed to make them fail within hours instead of lasting their full duration. He was trying to trigger my heat on purpose, I realized. Yes, General Dorian confirmed. We found records on his personal computer. He'd been planning this for weeks. Thought if he triggered your heat, you'd be desperate enough to accept his help. Accept him. The violation of it made me feel sick. He was going to. He wasn't going to do anything, General Lucian said firmly. Because we stopped it. Because we protected you. And because he's going to pay for what he did. Where is he now? I asked. Detention, General Thaddeus said. Under armed guard, awaiting court-martial. But that wasn't enough for them. I could see it in their faces, in the rage barely contained beneath professional masks. We need to question him, General Dorian said. Find out if anyone else was involved. If there are other Omegas he's targeted. I'm coming with you, I said, sitting up. Caspian, you just came out of heat. I'm coming, I repeated firmly. He did this to me. I deserve to be there when he answers for it. They exchanged looks. Then General Thaddeus nodded. All right, but you stay behind the observation glass. You watch, but you don't engage directly. Agreed? Agreed. 20 minutes later, I was standing in an observation room watching Captain Brennick sit in an interrogation cell. He looked nervous, but not remorseful. Not yet. General Thaddeus entered the cell, sat down across from him. Captain Brennick, you know why you're here. Sir, I don't. Don't lie to me, General Thaddeus's voice cut like a blade. We have security footage. We have the compromised suppressants. We have your communications logs. We know exactly what you did. Captain Brennick went pale. The question is why, General Thaddeus continued. Why target Lieutenant Vale? Why sabotage his suppressants? Behind the glass, I watched as General Lucian and General Dorian entered the cell as well. 3 Alpha generals surrounding 1 Beta captain who'd thought he could get away with violating an Omega. Captain Brennick stammered. I didn't think he was with anyone. I thought if he went into heat, he'd need help, need someone. You thought you could force an Omega into accepting you, General Dorian said, his voice deadly quiet. Thought you could manufacture vulnerability and exploit it. That's not I didn't mean. Yes, you did, General Lucian interrupted. We found your search history, guides on breaking suppressants, forums discussing heat manipulation. You knew exactly what you were doing. Captain Brennick's face went red. He was wasted on intelligence work. An Omega that pretty, that smart someone should be bonding him, claiming him. So you decided it should be you, General Thaddeus said. Regardless of his consent, regardless of his choices, you decided to take those choices away. I was trying to help. You were trying to assault him, General Dorian corrected. That's what this is, premeditated assault, and you're going to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of military law. Through the glass, I watched Captain Brennick realize the severity of his situation, watched him understand that 3 Alpha generals weren't going to let this go. How many others? General Lucian demanded. How many other Omegas have you targeted? No one. I swear, it was just him. We'll verify that, General Thaddeus said. We're pulling records for every Omega who's served in this facility in the past 3 years. If we find evidence you've targeted anyone else, the charges multiply. The interrogation continued for another hour. By the end, Captain Brennick had admitted everything. The planning, the execution, the intent. And he'd confirmed he'd acted alone. No co-conspirators. Just 1 Beta captain who'd decided an Omega's autonomy mattered less than his own desires. When it was over, the generals came to the observation room. How are you feeling? General Dorian asked me. Angry, I admitted, but also validated, knowing it wasn't my fault, that I didn't do anything wrong. You did nothing wrong, General Thaddeus said firmly. He did, and he's going to face consequences. What happens now? Now he goes to court-martial, General Lucian explained. The charges are severe: assault, sabotage, endangering a service member. He's looking at dishonorable discharge minimum, likely military prison. Good, I said, and I meant it. What's going to happen to Captain Brennick? Became the question everyone in the facility was asking over the next weeks. The court-martial was public. Military policy required it for cases involving assault, which meant I had to testify. I sat in the witness chair and told the panel of judges exactly what had happened: the harassment, the heat, the violation of having my autonomy stripped away by someone who thought he had the right. Captain Brennick's lawyer tried to argue that it was a misunderstanding, that his client had meant well, That triggering heat wasn't the same as assault. The judges didn't buy it. Premeditated sabotage of suppressants with intent to exploit the resulting vulnerability is assault, the senior judge declared. This court finds Captain Marcus Brennick guilty on all charges. The sentence was harsh: dishonorable discharge, 5 years in military prison, permanent registration as a sex offender. As they let him out of the courtroom, he looked at me, tried to say something, but I didn't give him the satisfaction of a response, just looked away. He didn't deserve my attention, didn't deserve anything from me. Outside the courtroom, Marshal Gray found me. "Justice was served," she said simply. "Yes, ma'am. And now it's over. You can focus on your work, on your life, on the generals who actually deserve you." "Thank you, ma'am." She nodded and walked away. And she was right. It was over. Captain Brennick was gone. The threat was neutralized. I could move forward. That evening, safe in their quarters with my mates surrounding me, I finally let myself feel the weight of it all. The fear, the anger, the relief. I cried. Hard. Ugly crying that came from somewhere deep. And they held me through it. Didn't try to fix it, didn't tell me to calm down, just held me and let me process. When I finally stopped, Thaddeus spoke. "You're safe now. We'll make sure nothing like this ever happens again." "How can you promise that?" I asked. "You can't control everyone." "No," Lucian agreed. "But we can control our facility, our command. We're implementing new protocols, anonymous reporting for harassment, mandatory training on Omega rights, stricter oversight of medical supplies. And we're personally vetting every single person who works in this facility," Dorian added. "Anyone who shows signs of being a threat to Omega's gone." "You're changing the entire system because of what happened to me?" "We're changing it because it should have been changed years ago," Thaddeus corrected. "You shouldn't have had to suffer for us to see the gaps. But now that we see them, we're fixing them." I loved them so much in that moment. These 3 alphas who weren't just protecting me, but using what happened to protect everyone who came after. "Thank you," I whispered. "Don't thank us," Dorian said. "Thank yourself. You're the one who was brave enough to testify, brave enough to fight back." They were right. I had fought back, had refused to let Captain Brennick's actions define me, had turned trauma into testimony that changed policy. That was worth something. That mattered. "Don't thank us," General Lucian said. "We're being selfish. When we smelled your heat starting, when we realized you were in distress," he stopped, exchanged looks with his brothers. "Something in us just snapped. All our training became irrelevant," General Thaddeus continued. "The only thing that mattered was protecting you, keeping you safe." "That sounds like more than just alpha instincts," I said quietly. "We know," General Dorian said. "We've been trying to figure out what this is. We've worked with you for 2 months. Professional interactions only. But the moment your heat hit, it was like everything reorganized," General Lucian finished. "Like suddenly the war didn't matter as much as making sure you were safe." My heart was pounding. "Generals." "We're not saying this to pressure you," General Thaddeus said firmly. "You're still in heat, still vulnerable. We won't take advantage of that. But when this is over, when you're thinking clearly, we need you to know. We want to explore whatever this is. All 3 of us," General Dorian added. "We know that's complicated, unconventional. But we've never felt anything like this." I stared at them. 3 alpha generals who'd built their reputations on cold efficiency, now standing in the half-dark confessing things that clearly terrified them. "I'm not good at relationships," I admitted. "I've always been better with data than people. I don't know how to do this." "Neither do we," General Lucian said. "We've spent our lives avoiding emotional vulnerability, but we can figure it out together." The heat was rising again, but this time it felt different. Less desperate, more focused. I stood up, the uniform shirt falling around me, and crossed to where they stood. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything," General Thaddeus said. "Earlier you said you wouldn't touch me unless I explicitly asked. Does that offer still stand?" 3 alpha gazes locked on me with sudden intensity. "Yes," General Dorian said, his voice rough. "Then, I'm asking," I looked at each of them, "I'm asking you to help me through this. Not because the heat is making me desperate, but because somewhere between you locking that door and right now, I started trusting you, and I want to see where this goes." General Thaddeus stepped forward first, slow and careful, giving me time to change my mind. Are you absolutely certain, Lieutenant? I've never been more certain of anything, and I hesitated. It's Caspian. Not Lieutenant. Not right now. Caspian, General Lucian repeated, like he was tasting my name. General Dorian cupped my face gently. Then call us by our names, too. Thaddeus, Lucian, Dorian. No ranks. Not here. He kissed me then, soft and careful, like I was something precious. The heat flared immediate and bright, but underneath was something deeper. Recognition. Connection. When we broke apart, Lucian was there, turning me gently. We need you to understand something. This isn't just the heat. This isn't just biology. We meant what we said. You matter, Thaddeus said, his hands settling on my waist from behind. More than the war, more than our reputations, more than anything. And we want you, Dorian finished. Want to see if this feeling is real. Want to build something with you. I looked at all three of them, these powerful alphas who were being so careful with me. Good, because I want that too. What followed was heat and intimacy and trust, building in layers. But let me tell you what it was really like. Let me tell you about the 30 hours that changed everything. The first wave after they agreed to help was the worst. My body had been holding back, trying to manage alone, and the moment I gave myself permission to accept their help, it crashed over me like a tsunami. I made a sound I'd never made before, desperate, pleading, and all three of them moved at once. Thaddeus reached me first, pulling me against his chest. Tell me what you need. I don't know, I gasped. Everything. Nothing. It hurts. Lucian was there, his hand cool against my overheated forehead. We're here. We're not going anywhere. Just breathe with me. He demonstrated slow, measured breaths. I tried to follow, but another wave hit and I arched against Thaddeus, whimpering. Dorian knelt beside us. Caspian, listen to me. This is going to get worse before it gets better. We need to know, do you want us to help you through this physically? Or do you want to manage it yourself with us just present? I couldn't finish. Couldn't articulate what my body was screaming for. Take your time, Thaddeus said, though I could feel the tension in his body, the control it was taking not to react to my distress. I want you, I finally managed. All of you, please. Are you certain? Lucian asked. Because once we start, I'm certain, I interrupted. I've never been more certain of anything. Dorian's expression shifted. Then we're yours. All of us. They were careful, so careful. Learning my body's responses, what eased the ache and what intensified it. Thaddeus was methodical, strategic in his approach. Lucian was attentive to every micro-expression, adjusting instantly. Dorian was gentle, despite his strength, constantly checking that I was okay. Between waves, they talked to me. Not about the heat, about everything else. Tell me about your childhood, Thaddeus said, his voice steady even as he helped me through another spike of need. I grew up in a small town. I managed between breaths. My parents ran a bookshop. I was always the quiet kid who preferred numbers to people. When did you realize you wanted to join the military? Lucian asked, his hands soothing. When I was 15, there was a recruitment presentation at school. The recruiter talked about intelligence work, about pattern recognition, and tactical analysis. It was the first time I'd heard someone describe a job that sounded like how my brain worked. So you enlisted as soon as you could? Dorian prompted. At 18. I swallowed hard as another wave built. Right after I presented as Omega, I knew I'd have to suppress it to serve an intelligence, but it seemed worth it. Was it? Thaddeus asked quietly. Worth it? I looked at all three of them. These men who were helping me through the most vulnerable moment of my life. Yes, it brought me here. To you. So yes. Something shifted in their expressions. Something deeper than just alpha response to Omega in heat. We should tell you about us too, Lucian said. Make this fair. We grew up in a combat zone, Dorian began. Our mother was killed when we were 8. Our father raised us alone, taught us to fight, to survive, to never show weakness. He was a good man, Thaddeus added, but hard. He believed the only way we'd survive was if we became harder than everyone else. So we did, Lucian finished. We joined the military at 18, all three of us together. We've never been separated. Never? I asked. Never, Dorian confirmed. We're a unit. We think as one, fight as one, command as one. Is that why you never bonded before? The question slipped out. Because you'd have to include someone in that unit? Thaddeus was quiet for a moment, partly, but mostly because we never felt anything strong enough to risk it. We saw bonding as a liability, a weakness to exploit. And now? I whispered. Now we know we were wrong, Lucian said. You're not a weakness. You're a strength we didn't know we needed. Another wave hit, harder this time. I cried out, clutching at whichever one was closest Dorian, I realized. We've got you, he murmured against my temple. You're safe. You're ours. We're not letting go. The heat continued in cycles. 30 minutes of desperate need followed by 20 minutes of relative calm. During the calm, we talked more. I told him about my first posting, about the terror of being a newly presented Omega in a military environment designed for alphas and betas, about learning to mask everything that made me vulnerable. That must have been lonely, Thaddeus observed. It was, but I thought it was necessary. I thought if anyone knew what I was, I'd lose everything I'd worked for. You wouldn't have, Lucian said firmly. Not with us in command. We've always believed Omegas belong in every military role. The regulations that force suppression are archaic. Easy to say now, I pointed out. But you're generals. You have power. I was a lieutenant, trying to survive. Fair point, Dorian acknowledged. But for what it's worth, we're going to change those regulations. After this war is over, we're making sure no Omega has to hide to serve. You mean that? We mean everything we say to you, Thaddeus said. We don't make promises we can't keep. The heat intensified as hours passed. By hour 10, I was exhausted, wrung out, barely coherent. They took turns caring for me. Thaddeus would hold me through the worst waves, his steady strength grounding. Lucian would coax me to drink water, eat small amounts, maintain basic function. Dorian would talk me through the fear, the vulnerability, the overwhelming sensations. I can't, I sobbed at one point. It's too much. I can't do this anymore. Yes, you can, Lucian said firmly. You're doing it. You're surviving. And we're right here. How much longer? I asked desperately. We don't know, Thaddeus admitted. But however long it takes, we're not leaving. What if it lasts days? Then it lasts days, Dorian interrupted. And we're here for all of it. The war can wait. Nothing is more important than this. Than me? I asked incredulously. I'm just an intelligence officer. You're generals. The war needs you. The war needs us functional, Thaddeus said. And we're not functional if we leave you. Our alphas won't allow it. It's more than that, Lucian added quietly. We don't want to leave. We want to be here. Want to take care of you. Want to, he stopped, exchanged glances with his brothers. Want to bond you, Dorian finished. Want to make you ours permanently. If you'll have us. I stared at them through the haze of heat. You want to bond me? All three of you? All three of us, Thaddeus confirmed. We know it's unusual. We know it's complicated. But we've never felt anything like this. I've never felt anything like this either, I whispered. But bonding that's permanent. That's forever. We know, Lucian said, and we're sure. Are you? I thought about it. About these three men who'd protected me, cared for me, seen me at my most vulnerable and didn't flinch. About how safe I felt with them. About how right this all seemed, despite the impossibility. Yes, I said. I'm sure. I want that. Want you. All of you. Not now, Thaddeus said firmly. Not while you're in heat. When this is over, when you're thinking clearly, we'll ask again. And if you still want us, I'll still want you, I interrupted. This isn't just the heat talking. I struggled for words. This is recognition. Like I was waiting for you without knowing it. Dorian pulled me close, pressed his forehead to mine. We were waiting too. All our lives, waiting for this. The heat peaked around hour 18, a wave so intense I thought I might break from it. I screamed, actually screamed, clawing at whoever was closest. All three of them surrounded me, their presence overwhelming and necessary, all at once. Let go, Lucian urged. Stop fighting it. We've got you. I can't, I gasped. Too much. Can't. You can, Thaddeus said. Trust us. Trust yourself. And somehow, I did. Stopped fighting the heat and surrendered to it completely. Let it crash over me, through me, consuming everything. When I came back to myself, I was sobbing, not from pain, from release, from the intensity of letting go. There you go, Dorian murmured, his hand stroking my hair. That's it. You did so well. The heat didn't break immediately after that, but it changed, became more manageable, like my body had gotten what it needed and was willing to ease up. By hour 24, the waves were further apart, 30 minutes of heat followed by an hour of calm, progress. During one calm period, I asked the question that had been hovering in my mind. What happens after this? After the heat ends and reality comes back? What do you want to happen? Lucian asked. I hesitated. I want this to be real. Want to see if this feeling survives outside of heat biology. Want to build something with you. Then that's what we do, Thaddeus said simply. We build something. Together. But the military will adapt, Dorian said firmly. We'll make it work. We've never failed a mission yet. I smiled despite my exhaustion. You're very confident. We're very determined, Lucian corrected. When we want something, we get it, and we want you. The heat finally broke at hour 30. One moment I was riding another wave, the next, it just stopped, like a switch flipping. The desperate need vanished, leaving behind exhaustion and clarity. I slumped against Thaddeus, boneless. It's over. It's over, he confirmed, relief evident in his voice. You did it. We did it, I corrected. I couldn't have managed alone. You shouldn't have to manage alone, Dorian said. Not anymore. Lucian brought water, soup, helped me eat despite my trembling hands. You need to rest now. Real rest. Stay? I asked. Please stay. We're not going anywhere, Thaddeus promised. We slept in a pile, all four of us tangled together, and when I woke hours later, they were still there, still surrounding me, still mine. By the time the heat fully passed and my mind cleared completely, I knew three things with absolute certainty. I was falling in love with all three of them. They were falling in love with me. And we were going to have to navigate this under intense military scrutiny. We need to discuss the professional implications, Thaddeus said the next morning, all of us tangled together in their bed. I groaned. Do we have to? Unfortunately, yes, Dorian said. You're an intelligence officer. We're your commanding officers. There are regulations, power dynamics, potential conflicts of interest. I could request a transfer. Absolutely not, Lucian said firmly. You're the best intelligence analyst we have. We're not losing you professionally because we want you personally. But we need to do this right, Thaddeus continued. Transparency. We'll inform command immediately. You'll report through a different chain. We'll recuse ourselves from any decisions that directly affect you. You've thought about this. We've thought about everything, Dorian smiled slightly. We want this to work. Not just the relationship, all of it. Building something real while maintaining military integrity. That sounds complicated. The best things usually are, Lucian said. They were right. The next few weeks were a careful dance of public professionalism and private intimacy. The morning after the heat broke, they submitted formal relationship disclosure to Supreme Command. 3 Alpha generals claiming the same Omega intelligence officer. It was unprecedented. The response came within hours. Supreme Commander Marshal Gray wanted a meeting immediately. We went together, all 4 of us, walked into her office knowing this could end our careers. Marshal Gray was a beta woman in her 60s, with steel gray hair and eyes that had seen every battlefield trick. She looked at us for a long moment. This is irregular, she said finally. Yes, ma'am, Thaddeus responded. You understand the optics? 3 commanding officers in a relationship with a subordinate analyst? We understand, Lucian said, which is why we're proposing a complete reorganization of Lieutenant Vale's reporting structure. He'll report through Colonel Vance's intelligence division. We'll recuse ourselves from any decisions affecting him directly. And if the relationship fails, Marshal Gray asked bluntly, if this ends badly, then we deal with it professionally, I said, speaking for the first time. I'm not leaving the military over a relationship, ma'am. This is my career, too. She studied me. You're the analyst who predicted the Dominion's northern offensive 3 weeks before it happened. Yes, ma'am. You're also the one who cracked their encryption protocol when everyone else said it was impossible. Yes, ma'am. She leaned back. I'm not losing that talent because 3 generals can't keep their personal and professional lives separate. She looked at them. You're proposing internal reassignment for Lieutenant Vale? Immediate reassignment to Colonel Vance's direct command, Dorian confirmed. All performance reviews, assignments, and evaluations go through him. We maintain professional distance during operations. And in private? Marshal Gray asked. In private, we're building a life together, Thaddeus said, if you'll permit it. Marshal Gray was quiet for a long moment. Then, I'm approving this on a conditional basis. You maintain the professional boundaries you've outlined. Lieutenant Vale's performance doesn't suffer, and the moment this becomes a distraction from winning this war, it ends. Are we clear? Crystal clear, ma'am, we said in unison. Dismissed. We left her office in stunned silence. In the hallway, Lucian finally spoke. That went better than expected. She could have ended our careers, I said shakily. She could have, Dorian agreed. But she's practical. She knows we're effective. She's betting we can maintain that effectiveness. Then we prove her right, Thaddeus said firmly. The reassignment happened within 24 hours. I moved from direct reporting under the generals to Colonel Vance's intelligence division. My desk relocated 2 floors down. My security clearances adjusted. It should have felt like a demotion. It didn't. It felt like protection for all of us. Colonel Vance called me into his office on my first day in the new assignment. Lieutenant Vale, sit. I sat. He was quiet for a moment then. I'm not going to pretend this isn't unusual. 3 generals claiming 1 Omega analyst. But Marshal Gray approved it, so I'm working with it. Yes, sir. What I need from you is simple. Do your job. Do it brilliantly, like you always have. Don't let this relationship compromise your work. Can you do that? Yes, sir. Absolutely. Good, because you're the best analyst I've seen in 20 years. I'm not losing that to romance drama. I smiled slightly. There won't be drama, sir. We're all too professional for that. We'll see, he said. But so far, you've proven yourself. Keep proving it. I did. The next month, I broke 2 more encryption protocols, predicted 3 enemy movements, and produced intelligence reports that changed battle strategies. My work didn't suffer. If anything, it improved. Having 3 alphas who believed in me, supported me, gave me a foundation I'd never had before. But maintaining professional distance during operations was hard. There was a strategy meeting 2 weeks after our relationship became official. I was presenting intelligence analysis. The generals were in attendance, along with 30 other officers. The enemy is consolidating forces here, I indicated on the tactical map. They're preparing for a major offensive. We have a 72-hour window to strike first. General Thaddeus studied the map. What's your confidence level on this assessment? 93%, sir. The pattern analysis is definitive. His eyes met mine for just a second. Professional, distant, then he nodded. Colonel Vance, mobilize the 2nd Division. General Dorian, coordinate with Special Forces. We strike at dawn. It was perfect military efficiency. But afterward, in private, Thaddeus pulled me aside. That was hard, he admitted. Treating you like just another analyst when you're so much more. That's the job, I said. Professional distance in public, this in private. I kissed him, brief and fierce. Worth it? He asked. Absolutely worth it. The first month was an adjustment. Learning to toggle between Lieutenant Vale, the intelligence officer, and Caspian, their Omega. Learning when to salute and when to kiss. Learning to exist in both worlds without mixing them. But we figured it out. Stolen moments in their quarters after night shifts. I'd brief them on intelligence, strictly professional, then the moment the tactical reports were done, Lucian would pull me into his lap and we'd drop the ranks entirely. I love this, Dorian said one evening, watching me reorganize their tactical files with a system that actually made logical sense. I love seeing how your mind works when you're not censoring yourself for military protocol. My mind works the same way regardless of protocol, I pointed out. No, Thaddeus said. In meetings, you're careful, measured. Here, You're free. It's different. He was right. In private, I could be myself completely, could arrange their books by tactical relevance rather than alphabetical order, could explain my analytical process without worrying about seeming strange. And they loved it. Loved every peculiarity, every quirk, every unconventional thought pattern. I love how you see warfare like it's a massive logic puzzle, Lucian said one night, watching me build a new predictive model for enemy behavior. It's beautiful. It's just pattern recognition. It's art, Dorian corrected. Mathematical art. A month became 2. The secret felt less like hiding and more like something we were protecting until it was strong enough for full scrutiny. And it was getting stronger. I learned that Thaddeus had nightmares about the soldiers he'd lost, that he'd wake up gasping, needing to account for every person under his command. I started keeping a roster by the bed so he could check it and calm down. I learned that Lucian pushed himself too hard, forgot to eat and sleep when focused on strategy. I started bringing him meals, setting timers, making sure he maintained basic function. I learned that Dorian carried guilt about every mission that didn't go perfectly, even when the outcomes were objectively successful. I started reviewing after-action reports with him, showing him the wins he couldn't see through his self-criticism. And they learned me. Learned that I got overwhelmed in crowds, needed time alone to process, showed love through actions rather than words. Learned that I had nightmares too about being discovered, being discharged, losing everything I'd worked for. They'd hold me through those, remind me it was just dreams, that we were building something real and protected. 3 months in, something shifted. We were in their quarters after a particularly brutal 18-hour strategy session. I was exhausted, barely coherent, just needing their presence. Thaddeus pulled me against his chest. "You're dead on your feet. Sleep." "Can't," I mumbled, still processing the new intelligence data. The Dominion's movements don't make sense. There's a pattern I'm missing. "The pattern can wait," Lucian said firmly. "Sleep comes first." "But, Caspian," Dorian interrupted gently, "we love that you're dedicated, but you're no good to anyone if you work yourself to death. Sleep. The war will still be here tomorrow." Something in his voice, the concern, the care, the absolute certainty that I mattered more than the mission broke through my exhaustion. "I love you," I said. "All 3 of you. I love that you see me as more than my analytical value. I love that you make me rest. I stopped, overwhelmed. "We love you too," they said in unison. And that's when I knew. This wasn't just attraction or biology or convenient compatibility. This was real, deep, permanent. "I want to bond," I said. "Properly. When the time is right, I want all 3 of you, forever." Thaddeus's arms tightened around me. "We want that too, more than anything." "But not yet," Lucian added. "Not while the war's still active. Not while we could be deployed separately. We bond when we can be together, when we can do it right." "I can wait," I said. "As long as you're sure." "We're sure," Dorian promised. "Never been more sure of anything." 4 months after the War Council meeting, I was working late in the intelligence center when my analysis hit something massive. The Dominion's troop movements over the past 6 weeks, I'd been tracking them, building models, trying to understand their strategy. And suddenly, looking at the pattern from a different angle, I saw it. "They're not preparing for an offensive," I breathed. "They're preparing for retreat." I ran the numbers again, checked every data point. It held up. They're losing. They know they're losing. They're consolidating for a strategic withdrawal, possibly to negotiate peace. I grabbed my tablet and ran, not to my commanding officer, to their quarters. I burst through the door without knocking, found all 3 of them reviewing tactical reports. "We're winning," I said breathlessly. "The war. We're winning." They looked at me, then at each other. "Show me," Thaddeus said. I spent the next hour walking them through my analysis. Every data point, every pattern, every conclusion. When I finished, Lucian sat back. "This is solid. If you're right, I am right." "Then we need to shift our entire strategic approach," Dorian said. "Move from offensive to pressure, force them to the negotiating table." Thaddeus was already on his comm. "Marshal Gray, I need an emergency strategy session. I'm sending you analysis from Lieutenant Vale that changes everything." The emergency session happened at 0200 hours. Every senior commander, Marshal Gray, presiding. I presented my findings, fielded questions, defended my conclusions. By 0400 hours, we had a new strategy. Push hard enough to force negotiation, but not so hard we backed them into a corner where fighting was their only option. By 0600 hours, the orders were going out. And by sunrise, I'd changed the course of the war. Marshal Gray found me afterward in the intelligence center. Lieutenant Vale. Ma'am, that was exceptional work, the kind of analysis that ends conflicts. I'm recommending you for commendation. I just did my job, ma'am. No, she said. You did far more than that. She paused. The generals are lucky to have you, professionally and personally. Thank you, ma'am. She left. And I sat there, realizing that we might actually win this. Might actually get to the peace on the other side. Might actually get to build the life we wanted. That evening, in their quarters, they made it official. Caspian, Thaddeus said, we want to ask you something. He pulled out a small box. Inside were 3 bonding bands, not traditional military issue, custom made, each engraved with their names and a date. The date we'd first helped me through heat. We know we can't complete the bond yet, Lucian said. Not while we're in active operations, but we wanted you to have these, as a promise. A promise that when this war is over, Dorian finished, we're going to bond you properly, all 3 of us, if you'll have us. I took the bands, feeling their weight. Yes. 1,000 times yes. They put one on my wrist, I put one on each of theirs. Not quite bonded, but promised, claimed, theirs. The war ended 8 months later, but let me tell you how we got there. Let me tell you about the final push and what came after. My analysis had been correct. The Dominion was preparing for withdrawal. But they needed a face-saving way out, something that looked like strategic repositioning rather than defeat. That's where the real work began. Not just winning the war, but ending it in a way that would stick. I spent 16-hour days in the intelligence center, analyzing every communication, predicting every move the Dominion negotiators would make. Thaddeus, Lucian, and Dorian coordinated the military pressure enough to force negotiation, not enough to make surrender impossible. There was a night, 2 months before the end, when I hit a wall. I was staring at intercepts, trying to understand what the Dominion leadership was planning, and the patterns weren't making sense. Nothing aligned. Nothing clicked. I felt hands on my shoulders, looked up to find all 3 of them standing behind me. You've been here for 19 hours straight, Lucian said quietly. The war doesn't care about work hours, I replied. No, but we care about you, Dorian said. Come to bed. Rest. The answers will come when you stop forcing them. I can't. If I miss something, if I get this wrong, then we adjust, Thaddeus interrupted. But burning yourself out helps no one. They physically pulled me away from my desk, brought me to their quarters, made me eat, made me sleep. And when I woke up 8 hours later, the answer was there, obvious, simple. The Dominion wasn't trying to negotiate peace. They were buying time for one final offensive. A desperate last attempt to turn the war. I showed them my analysis. Within hours, we'd repositioned forces. When the Dominion launched their attack 3 days later, we were ready. We crushed them. Decisively. Irrevocably. And that's when they finally came to the table. Really came to the table, ready to end it. The negotiations took 6 weeks. I was there for all of it, in an advisory capacity, analyzing the Dominion negotiators' body language, their word choices, predicting their moves before they made them. The generals were there too, part of the Allied delegation. We maintained perfect professionalism in public, but every evening we'd return to quarters and collapse together. How did I do today? Thaddeus would ask. Did I miss any of their tells? You caught the hesitation when they mentioned territorial concessions, I'd reply. That's our opening. We were a team, in every sense of the word. The treaty was signed on a Thursday, 6 years of war ending with signatures on paper. The relief was overwhelming. The celebration in the capital was massive, streets filled with cheering crowds, soldiers reuniting with families, the collective exhale of a world that had held its breath too long. But we slipped away early, back to their quarters, now truly ours. And there, in the quiet after victory, something shifted. Caspian, Thaddeus said. The war is over. I know, I said. Still processing it. We won. Which means, Lucian continued, we can finally do this properly. Dorian pulled out the bonding bands we'd worn for months. It's time, if you're still sure. I've never been more sure of anything. They'd planned it. Of course they had. These were generals. Planning was what they did. They'd requisitioned a private ceremony room in the command facility. Small, intimate, perfect. Just us and an officiant, Colonel Vance, who'd agreed to perform the ceremony. He looked at us with something like pride. Never thought I'd see the day when 3 Alpha generals bonded the same Omega, but if anyone could make it work, it's you 4. The ceremony was simple, military efficient, but meaningful. Do you, Caspian Vale, accept these bonds? Colonel Vance asked. I do. All 3 of them. Do you, Generals Thaddeus, Lucian, and Dorian Crow, accept this bond? We do, they said in unison. Then, by the authority vested in me by the Allied military command, I recognized this bond as legitimate and binding. The official part was done. Now came the actual bonding. They'd decided the order beforehand. Thaddeus first, the eldest, the supreme commander, the foundation. Lucian second, the strategist, the one who saw through everything. Dorian third, the protector, the gentle strength. Thaddeus cupped my face. I love you, Caspian. You're my partner, my equal, my home. This is forever. He bit down on my bonding gland, left side of my neck. The pain was sharp and immediate, then transformed into something else. A connection snapping into place. A bond forming. Threads of emotion and sensation tying us together in ways that transcended words. I felt Thaddeus through the bond. His steady strength, his tactical mind, his absolute certainty that this was right. Lucian was next. You're the missing piece we didn't know we needed. I love your brilliant mind, your quiet strength, your heart. He bit right side of my neck, another bond forming. I felt his analytical nature, his hidden warmth, his fierce protectiveness. Dorian was last. You made us whole, made us capable of softness. I love you with everything I am. His bite was at the base of my neck. The third bond completing the set. I felt his gentle power, his guilt, transformed into care, his absolute devotion. 3 bonds, 3 connections, 3 pieces of my heart given to 3 alphas who'd protected me, loved me, chosen me. Now me, I said. They knelt before me, 3 generals kneeling for their Omega, offering their necks in trust and submission and love. I bit Thaddeus first, tasted his blood, his essence, his soul, felt the bond strengthen, deepen, become permanent. Then Lucian, the sharp intake of breath as I claimed him, as our bond solidified into something unbreakable. Then Dorian, the final piece, the completion. When I pulled back, all 3 bonds were glowing through our connection. I could feel them every emotion, every thought, every bit of love pouring through the links that tied us together. It's done, Thaddeus said, his voice rough. You're ours. We're yours. Forever. Forever, I agreed. Colonel Vance cleared his throat. Well, that was beautiful in a terrifying sort of way. Congratulations. You're officially the most bonded pack in military history. We laughed, all 4 of us, giddy with relief and joy and love. The aftermath of bonding was intense. The bonds were new, raw, overwhelming. I could feel everything they felt. Could sense Thaddeus's pride, Lucian's contentment, Dorian's relief. And they could feel me. Could sense my happiness, my love, my absolute certainty that this was right. It's strange, I said that evening, all of us tangled together in bed, feeling you all the time. Strange good or strange bad? Lucian asked. Strange perfect, I replied. Like I was living with muted senses before, and now everything is clear. That's exactly it, Dorian agreed. I can feel you feeling me, feeling you. It's recursive and beautiful. We'll need to learn the boundaries, Thaddeus said. How to give each other privacy through the bond. How to maintain individual identity while being connected. We'll figure it out, I said. Together. And we did. Over the next weeks, we learned to modulate the bonds, to be present without being overwhelming, to share without losing ourselves. The military transition was harder. 3 generals retiring from active service to take consulting positions, me transitioning from intelligence operations to policy work. We'd fought the war, now we'd build the peace. Our first major project was Omega rights in military service. I testified before the Armed Services Committee about my experience suppressing my nature to serve, being sabotaged, nearly losing everything. The regulations we're working with are archaic, I told them. Requiring Omegas to suppress is discriminatory and dangerous. We need comprehensive reform. The committee listened. 3 months later, new regulations passed. Omegas could serve openly. Suppressants were optional, not mandatory. Protections against discrimination were strengthened. It felt like redemption, like the system that had failed me was finally changing. Marshal Gray called me into her office 6 months after the war ended. "Lieutenant," she stopped. "I keep forgetting. You're retired now. Mr. Vale." "Caspian is fine, ma'am." She smiled slightly. "You know what you've accomplished? The Omega Protection Regulations are the most significant military reform in 50 years. We accomplished it," I corrected. "It took everyone's work. Don't be modest. It takes courage to testify about trauma, to use your experience to change systems. You should be proud." "I am," I admitted, "and grateful. That something good came from something terrible. That's how progress works," she said. "People brave enough to transform pain into purpose." 1 year after that war council meeting, I stood in the same room where everything had changed. It smelled like coffee now. No gunpowder, no crisis, just a strategy meeting for the Veterans Advocacy Organization we'd founded. The 3 of them sat across from me, retired from active military, now consultants and advocates. Still brilliant, still formidable, still mine. "Same room," I observed quietly. "Same table where I went into heat and thought my life was over." "Your life was just beginning," Thaddeus said. Lucian smiled. "Best crisis we ever managed." The meeting started. We presented our proposal for expanded Omega healthcare, for mental health services for veterans, for systematic changes that would help everyone who'd served. By the end, we had unanimous approval. As everyone filed out, Dorian pulled me back. "1 year ago," he said quietly, "we locked this door, thinking we were preventing a catastrophe. We didn't know we were locking ourselves into the best decision we'd ever make." "Getting sentimental, General Crow?" I teased. "Desperately sentimental," Thaddeus admitted. "Completely in love." "Utterly yours," Lucian added. They pulled me close, and through the bonds I felt their love, their certainty, their absolute commitment. "I wouldn't have it any other way," I whispered. Neither would we. We left the conference room hand in hand, all 4 of us connected physically and through bonds that would never break. Walking into a future we'd built together through war and peace, crisis and calm, one impossible probability at a time. Thank you for joining Caspian Vale's journey from military intelligence officer to bonded mate of 3 Alpha generals. If this story of heat, claiming, and love forged in crisis touched your heart, hit that like button and subscribe for more BL Omegaverse stories that'll wreck you in the best way. Drop a comment telling me which moment hit you hardest. Until next time, remember, sometimes the most impossible things are the ones worth fighting for. Sometimes the best bonds are forged in the heat of crisis. And sometimes love finds you exactly when you need it most.